Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to your NAGAP webinar today on how to develop a great proposal for a conference education session. I'm Kate McConnell, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us. On your screen, you can see what we're going to cover today. A little bit of an intro about the conference, also about our proposal basics. We will review with you in order to submit a great proposal for consideration. And then we'll have some closing tips for you, as well as we'll open it up for question and answer at the end. So today's presenters, I'll introduce myself first, and then I'll turn it over to the other presenters. I'm Kate McConnell. I'm the Director of Marketing and Recruitment for Penn State Great Valley in Malvern, Pennsylvania. We are one of the Commonwealth campuses for Pennsylvania State University, and we are solely dedicated to the education of working adults, graduate students, and non-credit adult learners. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Greg.
And I'm Greg Henderscheid. I'm the Coordinator for Academic Programs in the Department of Family, Youth, and Community Sciences at Education Committee. And we would be remiss if we did not introduce Alicia Hanshaw. She could not be with us last minute today, but she did contribute to the presentation. We wish she were with us, but we did want to recognize her contributions to making this happen today.
Thanks, Greg. It definitely does take a village, doesn't it? So here you go. Our next GEM Summit is going to be April 20th to the 23rd, 2022 in the beautiful city of Chicago. The theme is GEM Change Management, and you'll see the location of the summit. The deadline for proposals, please note this on your calendar, is September 27th, 2021 at 11:59 p.m. And make sure you register for the conference once it opens. And again, Chicago better watch out because there's a lot of bent up energy in all of us GEM professionals that haven't been to a summit in 2 years. So Chicago better watch out. So the goals of the education session are kind of outlined here. We would like to stress with all of you that your proposal should be generally aligned with the theme of the conference. And they're going to focus on the various aspects of graduate enrollment management. And we're going to get into more detail as we go on into this presentation of the 7 categories, or as we call them, the educational domains. And the topics for such domains are determined through research and member feedback. And these are the things that we're going to be talking more in depth as we go through today's presentation. So first thing there's 4 types of presentations. I can say I've done 3 out of the 4. The first is a panel discussion. It's simply where there may be 3 presenters and a facilitator of the discussion. The next is an individual presentation, or it could be a presentation with yourself and another trusted colleague that you've worked together with to submit the proposal. And then there's the special interest forum. Some of you may have attended special interest forums where you'll come into the room and there'll be a series of round tables, everyone sitting around, and there'll be a facilitator, maybe a couple other people part of that presentation, and they're going to facilitate a discussion, might throw out some questions for the tables to have a discussion on, and then report back to the group. And then there are, the last one is the vendor presentation, which is usually done with a vendor and maybe one of their clients for the summit. And really simple guiding principles. We want our presenters to share latest and the most current best practices, new information related to the topic that they're talking about. As always, less PowerPoint, more engagement, more discussion. And later in the year, we will be offering a webinar after the new year on how to present at Summit. So we'll get into those details at a later webinar. But we also want you, when you're looking at your proposal, think about the ethical implications of the topic that you're going to be presenting. Always make sure that your agenda is very clear, you have clear takeaways for your presentation, and that you're going to leave enough time in the planning of your presentation for a Q&A session. And the learning levels, there's really 3 types of learning levels. It's kind of the approach is not really based on the number of years or experience in the field, but more of like looking at expertise related to the topic or the task at hand. So the 3 of them are simply outlined here for you: tactical, operational, and strategic. And they really speak for themselves. Tactical, the knowledge and understanding level, using, doing, implementing. The operational is kind of that development plan, how you're planning, how you're organizing. And then the strategic, you're taking that to the next level, the analysis, the synthesis, and evaluation level. So you're analyzing, you're managing, you're doing the evaluation, and you're deciding and planning and moving on. So now I'm going to turn you over to Greg, because he's going to take you through the education domains.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kate. So it's probably no surprise that an awful lot of NAGAP is centered around recruitment, marketing, our grad programs. And I think a lot of times that's what people think NAGAP is. But several years ago, NAGAP really made the decision to move toward graduate enrollment management, or GEM. And what we're talking about there is not just recruiting students, but all aspects of the grad student life cycle and all aspects of the management of what it is we do. And so you may or may not have noticed, but all NAGAP educational offerings touch on one of the 6 educational domains, and every few years we'll tweak them and change them a little bit. But they've stayed relatively the same for quite some time now, because we really think it gets at the entire scope of graduate enrollment management. So we're going to go through each one of these, and then we'll go through with a couple of examples of past proposals and or workshops that we've had to give you an idea of what that is. You probably don't need me to explain too much about the domain recruitment and marketing. That's what a lot of you do. This really gets at how to outreach students, how to effectively recruit students to your program, how do you market it. It's what many of us do. And it is by far and away the largest category of the domains. And when you look at the educational offerings that NAGAP has, an awful lot of it is centered around that for obvious reasons, because students are the lifeblood of our operation. Number 2 is money matters. And money matters can really, it often means graduate education financing. So it can be something about student loans. It can be something about student loan forgiveness. It can be something about how to leverage grants to fund grad students. It can be any number of things like that. It can also be about budgeting in your operation. So it isn't necessarily exclusive to student finance. So that's often the route that people will take, and that's often how you'll see it manifest itself at the various educational options at NAGAP. GEM operations is really your daily operations, right? This can be anything, CRM implementation, staffing, anything like that. This is really a very broad topic, and this used to be a variety of things that we just lumped into one general category. So anything to do with your daily operations is fair game. Number 4 is student lifecycle engagement and support. This is really grad student services. So anything to do with orientation, onboarding, how to engage them with faculty, how to work with specific international groups, whatever it is. And that is through the graduate student experience, including alumni engagement falls under that. session number 4. Enrollment modeling and strategic planning is similar to GEM operations, but at a higher level. So if you're talking about evaluation of a program or strategic planning for your operation, most of the people who are submitting proposals for this domain tend to be in senior management. And 6 is career staff and personal development. It can be, this one is a good example of how a topic might be GEM operations, or it might be career personal development with staff. If you're talking about staffing and how to effectively supervise, the argument could be made, it could be 3 or it could be 6. I wouldn't belabor that too much if it's something that's kind of on the fence like that. But it also anything to do with career assessment, career options for people in GEM, or we've even had people do things like stress management and so forth. So any of those things are fair game for the educational domain number 6. So taking a look at a couple of examples, here we have recruitment, front of recruitment and marketing, recruitment strategies for schools and programs facing enrollment challenges, reaching international students, armchair recruitment or road warrior. A couple of others here that I'm pulling, recruiting and retaining the best students, the need for pre-advising to determine fit, and effective use of CRMs in recruitment strategies and analysis. Money matters. This is, we'll talk about how to really, I guess, leverage your proposal, but money matters is one that we don't get as many proposals on. So note to self, we're always looking for variety. Scholarships, assistantships, or grant, offering the best aid for your students, driving enrollments, moving toward net tuition revenue models. You can see that has a little bit to do with budget implications as well. Evaluating tuition costs versus potential earning capacity, and maybe one more here, success stories for school-based financial aid and tuition discounting. So you can see there are a lot of different avenues you can take with that. GEM operations, again, I said, very broad. It's one of those things, it's like the air we breathe. It's sort of our everyday life. Cross-functional admission and financial aid teams, utilizing a CRM to create engagement from prospect to alum. Another couple of options here, maximizing the GEM team, the benefits of cross-training, and evaluation and implementation, how to launch a new online application system. The number 4, this one's near and dear to my heart because it's really the lion's share of what I do in my daily life. Students support services, establishing and promoting an institutional culture of student service, building bridges with alumni to build new avenues for recruitment. Another couple of options could be legal and ethical issues in student services. If you have any expertise in this, this is often very popular. Success stories in retaining online students, and alumni advisory committees, how to build a strong alliance. As I said, the enrollment modeling and strategic planning is often your higher level things, building and sustaining a GEM model, creating new academic programs, research, marketing, and enrollment. Another couple of options could be data collection. Are you making the best use of your reporting tools, or evaluating your GEM model, measuring success and adjusting for change? And lastly, the career staff and personal development, best practices in training and staff development, new skills needed for GEM professionals. Another couple of options here, supervising and evaluating staff, rewards and challenges, current challenges facing GEM leaders, and best practices in training and staff development. So you see there are a lot of different ways you can go with this. There is a complete list. In fact, the additional ones that I read were directly off of NAGAP's website. If you go to the conference website and you look at where it talks about submitting a proposal, there is it's a clickable, and you can download it. There are a good 15 to 20 examples for each domain. So you can use those as what I call mental popcorn, as a way to stimulate ideas, and go from there and let your creativity and your expertise be your guide. And I'm going to turn it back over to Kate.
Thanks, Greg. Let's get down to a little brass tacks here. So critical elements of a proposal. Of course, it's going to be your title. It's going to be and again, when we talk title, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but really think about a title that when someone sees it in the summit program, they're going to look at it, and just the title alone is going to build some curiosity, engage them. It's kind of like if you do email marketing, the subject line is so important. In a proposal for summit, the title is so important because you want it to grab people's attention, and it can also be a little bit offbeat, and that's the way they can grab it. Also, your abstract. This is going to be the summary of what your topic's going to be all about. And again, be creative. You don't have to be kind of just straight, and this presentation is going to be about, you don't want to be mundane and boring. You really want to be a little bit more creative in what you're doing. Very important. You need to talk about your learning objectives, because we want all the people to know, if I go and I sit through this presentation, I am going to walk out with X, and that's going to be your learning objectives, and then the outline of your proposal. But I know from my own experience, when I look at the title and the learning objectives, I get a real good sense. Am I going to want to go to this one? Because again, they're going to be competing sessions at the same time. And I think the title, the abstract, and the learning objectives are really important to delineate what you're doing and what your focus is going to be on. So, give you a little idea here. So here's title. We want it to be catchy, descriptive. It can be long. It's not a subject line that you're going to think for an email, but like, here's some example. Who's afraid of financial aid? You know, graduate merit scholarships, how do they work? Okay. Jumpstart your cohort, conversion and anti-mount strategies, developing an effective evidence-based digital marketing campaign to meet institutional recruiting and enrollment goals. That's pretty direct. I know pretty much in that title what I'm going to get out of this presentation. So when you're choosing their title, focus in on the things that are on the left-hand side here. Catchy, descriptive, getting to the, making a point in that title and being accurate, because what you say your title is got to match up to what you write in your abstract. And you want to compel people to read further and want to know about your proposal presentation. Then the abstract. Okay, I kind of said this already, but here's a really good example of the jumpstart your cohort conversion and anti-mount strategies. I like this one because it says, you know, it kind of comes at you in a little bit more creative way. As a graduate enrollment operation, you well know the hard work that goes into planning for recruiting, admitting, and landing a new cohort of promising graduate students for your institution. Then it appears. You're near start of the term. Your anticipated class begins to mount. The students that you thought were secure for your new cohort start dwindling. A student contacts you with an excuse here, another one there. When you read through this abstract, you're like, yeah, I can relate to this. This is something that I've experienced it, and I'd love to see how somebody else who also has experienced it is now has addressed it and come out on the other side in a good place. So again, your abstract, make it catchy, connect your points, speak to your audience. You know, you're going to describe kind of the meat of what your session is going to be about. And it tells me, the last point, this tells you what you're probably going to expect when you go to that session. And then learning objectives, as I said before, we all know with objectives, they need to be clear, they need to be concise, easy to read, understandable. They have to be, and we all know this when we're doing our strategic plans, they've got to be actionable, measurable. They've got to have takeaways that you can integrate, and then reinforce, as they say, the data. But looking at all these, and you can read through them, you know, they're actionable. They're starting with a verb, like evaluate social media tools, explore, compare, develop, create. Again, actionable items, objectives that they're going to be able to understand completely when they're reading through them, what the objective is of this presentation that you're proposing. And then the outline, again, you're going to look at, here's your question, what is, and then you're going to review in 3 to 4 simple statements under your outline. For example, here, overview, inbound methodology, why content marketing is critical to reaching graduate students, how. So again, providing them with step-by-step in your outline, how you are going to go through in your presentation, key points, key areas for your audience, and then how and what they're going to be taking away from them. Less is more, as we say here below, but again, being specific, on target, thoughtful. And again, think of yourself as someone who's reading your proposal, who's going to be evaluating your proposal. And as Greg said, if you go to the conference site on the NAGAP website and you go to the part for online submission system, you'll be able to click on and see the rubric that's going to be used to evaluate your proposal. And then again, you'll get better explanation of the various educational domains, and then examples, as Greg said, of certain topics that fall under those domains.
So we do get a lot of questions about how the proposals are evaluated. So we'll go through the process so you understand what we're looking for, and hopefully that helps inform what you do when you're writing. I think it's always useful to know who your audience is when you're writing. So first thing we'd like to say is you do not have to be, an old salt in GEM and have been in the field for 10+ years in order to submit a proposal. We recognize that there are a wide range of experience levels, but related to that, but distinct from that, is your expertise level. You may be new in GEM, but you may be coming over from another part of higher ed, or you may be coming from the industry that gives you a lot of expertise working with a specific type of student or with a specific market. And so that is something that you can keep in mind. I think oftentimes people say, well, I kind of like to do a proposal, but I don't know, especially the newer professional might say, I don't know if I really have anything to say, or all these people that I meet at conferences seem to know so much more than I do. Don't downplay your own expertise. You probably have a niche that you're not even aware of because it's your everyday. We do have key elements that we look at the rubric that Kate mentioned earlier on a 5-point scale. So we start with the straight numeric, 1 to 5 for each one of these areas. The importance, the currency, the importance, and the appropriateness of the topic. Is this something that we ourselves, as the readers of these proposals, are these issues that we shake our heads and go, yeah, like Kate was saying, is that pulling me in and saying, yeah, I'd like to know more about this, right? Purposeful outcomes, can't say it enough. A lot of times people they're not as clear on this as they ought to be, but takeaways. There really should be very clear things that you're trying to get across, concepts and takeaways. So that definitely something to keep in mind there. A well-defined topic and abstract. I think a lot of times the problem is that we ask for these things in September and people are sort of excited and say, well, I'd like to present on something. And they'll submit something in a very general way about a very broad topic because, it's in April and you've got time to think about it. You'll deal with it in February or March. And if it looks like it might be, there are a lot of them that we get that are great ideas, fantastic topics, but we don't know really enough about what you're going to say about that topic. Or sometimes we get people who they're interested in the topic, but they don't necessarily have much expertise in it. Again, great topic, but the person submitting the proposal might not be the best person to speak on it, right? And then presenter qualifications. If you presented at other conferences, if you do teaching in your professional life, or if you do a lot of writing on a topic, that all helps. Again, don't feel like you have to have won a Nobel Prize or anything, but definitely let all of your qualifications shine. As we mentioned earlier, the deadline for submission is September 27th. We spend about 6 weeks reviewing the proposals, and then in December, we will notify the submitters whether they've been accepted or not. So who looks at them? Well, it's a lot of people, actually. The 3 people from the conference committee look at them. The education chair, this year that's me, and just about all of the education committee, which is about 14 people. Each submission, if I remember correctly, I think it's read by at least 3 people. So it's not like one person can read it, it falls flat and you're done. And we will pull those out and we will look at, oh, well, one of the 3 was a little lukewarm on this, but 2 of the others were very enthusiastic about it. And we'll really look and we make comments, and it's not just numbers, but we really spend hours actually on this. A couple of times, I think it was a couple years back, I did 2 6 or 8 hour Zoom days just going over this with my colleagues. So it's a fairly labor intensive process, but know that we're really pulling these apart and discussing these and talking about these relative to what else we've gotten for proposals that year. Know that it's a very thorough process. So things to consider when you're submitting a proposal. I alluded to this earlier, but I have to say, the marketing and recruiting is by far, and I mean by far, the most common proposal domain. We probably get 80% of our proposals, I'm just pulling that number out of the air, but it's probably pretty close to right, about recruiting and marketing. Now, if you have a really great topic about it, by all means submit that. But know that we're looking to get a nice cross section from all of the domains. So if by chance you have any, I can tell you that the money matters one is among the lowest, and yet we still think it's really important that GEM professionals be on top of that. So if you have anything to do with that, and it's halfway decent proposal, you have a stronger likelihood of having it accepted because we're simply looking for more of those to make sure that we cover that base. The same could be said for the personal and career, the domain number 6, the career staff and personal development. And I would say the student life cycle as well, the student services one is a little bit thinner. And so do keep that in mind. We do have some folks who will submit like they really want to present. And they will submit 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6 proposals, one with themselves and one with some friends and one with some colleagues and one with whatever. And we appreciate that people may have expertise in multiple areas. And it's not unheard of that people will get to present twice at the summit, but know that we're really trying to get a good cross section of voices. And we would rather see you spend, we also sometimes will see, to be honest, people who submit 5 proposals. That's a lot of time. And so sometimes though they aren't as well prepared, say as somebody who only did 1 or 2 and really spent some time on it. We think quality over quantity is really useful. And we've had it before. We've had one person who's very good, highly accomplished, who may have 3 that are really good, but at some point we say they're probably great at all 3 things, but we really don't need the same same person doing something 3 times. So we do like to spread the wealth, especially in recent years when the number of submissions has been pretty high. Again, be specific on the topic and the learning outcomes. Don't just have a general sense of what you want to talk about. Like there should be you should have a very solid outline and know what you're going to talk about quite specifically. And then your job between now and April is to fill in the blanks with your details. But definitely it's quite obvious as we read them, who's given some real concrete thought to what they want to talk about. Those stand out. Be focused, but not too narrow. I call this the Goldilocks approach. It is important to not have a topic that's so broad that it can go all over the place. But one thing that can be problematic is for somebody to do a topic that is so narrow that it's really only deals with a private school recruiting nurses or something. You'd be better off focusing on recruiting nurses in general than you would nurses at private schools, because you may have 3 people who come to that. Because keep in mind, at NAGAP, we have everything from small private schools to large state R1 institutions and everything in between. So you want to cast a fairly wide net, but not so wide that your topic is diffuse. And then consider your number of presenters. Sometimes people will say they want to do a standard presentation and they'll have 5 presenters. And that might be because they want to get everybody on their staff to participate, or it's easier to get professional development paid for if you're going to be presenting. But most of the time in a standard presentation that's not a panel, 5 people or more than 3 can be a little bit of a circus, and it can kind of spread it out and make it a little bit harder to track. If you're talking about a larger group, you're probably looking at a panel or maybe a special interest forum with those specific roundtable type things. I mean, now that would probably be a better format than just a straightforward presentation, just something to keep in mind. If you aren't accepted, and every year, to be honest with you, now last year was lower, just because I think a lot of people were in survival mode and weren't as into professional development. But I suspect in the years prior to COVID, we had more and more and more proposals every year, hundreds. And there were many that we had to turn down, not because they weren't good, some of them were excellent, but because we only had, say, 40 some odd slots or 50 some odd slots at Summit. We only have so many concurrent sessions there. So we do have to make some tough choices. That's why that proposal review process is quite long. But it is, let's see. So just know that we're looking at it, and you may still have a very good one. Think beyond the GEM Summit. We are working hard. For some people, the conference is NAGAP. Like, they think about, where are we going next year? I can't wait to see my friends. I can't wait to see old coworkers. I can't wait to meet new people, or if you're new in the field, which is a lot of our folks who come, they can't wait to network. Those are all great things. But NAGAP is so much more than Summit. And I say that respectfully as somebody who has been a past conference chair and everything else. And I love Summit. It's a highlight of my professional year. But I do think it's important to keep in mind that we have other ways that you can share your expertise. Little known fact, we look at proposals that were submitted, and even if they weren't chosen, we have that database. Our chapters look at the proposals, and we'll sometimes contact people to say, hey, we noticed you submitted something for Summit. Could you come speak at TechSCAP, for example, our chapter in Texas? We may like you to write an article for Perspectives. Maybe you'll be interviewed for one of our podcasts. There's all kinds of webinars like this. So we're going to be launching a blog in a couple of months. Maybe some of your things could be a great blog post, right? So there's all kinds of things. The Speaker Development Committee, which is a subcommittee in the Education Committee, is also there to help. There is a I'd like to present, or I have an idea links, forms on the NAGAP website. You can fill that out. Now, keep in mind that that is not a proposal submission per se, but that is a way for our people on the Education Committee to vet your topic and talk to you. They'll reach out, they'll call you, they'll want to know more about it, and they will try to plug you into an opportunity at NAGAP where you can share your expertise. And that's whether you present it at Summit or not. So don't feel like Summit is the only place for you to share what you know. You probably have a lot that you can offer your colleagues, and we're more than happy to help you do that. That's what the professional development is all about. We're opening up for Q&A. I don't know, we can give it a couple minutes in the chat room if anybody has any. I think we also had some people who submitted things prior to this, and I don't know if we've covered most of those or not, but if there's something you'd like to know, this is your chance to ask a question in the chat. Anything, everything is fair game. While we're waiting, Kate, is there anything else that you can think of it as you've reviewed your share of proposals over the years? Do you think, is there anything else that comes to mind or think trends you've noticed?
Well, I think the most important thing is presenting at Summit is a real opportunity for one professionally. That's how I felt it. I really felt I was honored when a proposal was accepted. And again, it exposes you to a lot of other people across the United States, even internationally, who'll come to your session, they'll listen to you, and then afterwards you have conversations, you end up, communicating after Summit. And for me, it helped me develop a network of professionals that I can now go to and say, hey, can you talk to me a little bit about how you do enrollment management projections? Because I was sat in on your presentation one time, and I know this is an area of your expertise. So I think that's been helpful for me, not only presenting, but then connecting with people who have same interests as I did in a presentation.
Great, thanks. It looks like we have our first question here. So is it okay to present solo? Absolutely, yes. Some people are better as solo presenters, and I talk a lot, so I tend to like to do solo presentations, but it can be great to do it with a team, but don't feel compelled. If you've got the topic, by all means. I would say quite a few of ours are solo. Any other questions?
Greg, one thing I wanted to say is that, having looked at the proposals when they come in, and we do put them through a nice evaluation, it's really fun to see how creative people get and how much detail they go into. And you can really tell that they are passionate about maybe a subject area, topic area, and that's really fun to see. And I think the fact that so many different eyes look at proposals really allows the submitters to know that they're being evaluated in a really very thoughtful process.
Absolutely. Got a couple of other things here. How long is a presentation session? And within a session, how long do you recommend for Q&A? And let's see, the education sessions are 1 hour. There is also a 30-minute option if you have just a shorter thing. Let's see, will this presentation be available for review? Yes, we are recording this, as with all past NAGAP webinars, but it is available logged into the Exchange. So we are hoping that you use this for your reference later. And you can always reach out. I'm happy to put my email in the chat as well. If you want to reach out with specific questions or later you want to do that, I'm more than happy to help, because we like to try to get the highest quality proposals possible. What else do we have here? It's not directly related, but are there grants for first-time in-conference attendees? That's a great question. There was not when I was conference chair. No, the word is not currently. There is not. I wish there was. Yeah, that would be fantastic. Again, if you find that a conference is out of reach for you financially, especially this year, I would say some people's professional development budget was slashed. I know mine was. I might be doing a little bit more out of pocket than I might normally do this year. But I would say if the conference is not within reach, there are a couple of options that are cheaper that you can still share your expertise. One would be possibly a chapter event. If you are in an area or in a specialty area that offers chapters, that has a chapter that's active and does some stuff you might, or a webinar or any of the other things we talked about. I think there are great ways you can still share your expertise if the cost is prohibitive for you. Anyone else?
Greg, Kristen
Yes.
wrote in the, do you receive feedback on your submitted proposal?
No, there is not specific feedback on the proposal. There is not. I know one of the things that I got to do when I was conference chair was when people weren't chosen, they would call me and they'd ask for feedback. And I generally didn't get into real specifics because it's really hard because sometimes they are quite good. But the one thing I would say is, go back to those basics. If your abstract is solid, if your outline is solid, if your topic is well developed and relevant, you've increased your chances a lot. Again, that's not to say that it isn't that's guaranteed, but if you wanted specific feedback, I guess I would sit down with somebody. I'd be happy to meet with them by Zoom or by phone and maybe talk about it. And see how it, and again, it might be a matter of there was nothing wrong with it. But if there were pointers there, if there were things that I think would have made it stronger, I would be happy to tell you and share that with you, because I'd love for everybody to have the opportunity to present at Summit at some point, should they want to. Anybody else? We've got some great questions here. Give it another minute or so. The one thing that we do get some questions on is you will be assigned a time and a day for your education session, should it be accepted. And unfortunately, we're not able to take requests for, gee, I really want Thursday, or I have to leave early on Saturday. I can't do Saturday morning. And you will have a certain amount of time to let us know whether you're going to accept it. And you really do have to accept it at the day and time. That is, that's a tough one, because I know some people, there's sometimes a stigma that people are concerned. I remember I had somebody who called me very concerned. They're like, they got a Saturday morning session. They just felt like nobody was going to come. And I reassured the person that Saturdays are actually fairly robust, mainly because, yes, there are a lot of people who cut out and they fly home on Saturday morning. There's no question. And if you stayed all the way to the closing brunch, it's a much smaller event. But if you look at the actual number of sessions on Saturday, it's far fewer. So the people who are there have fewer options. He called me after Summit and said, that was the biggest session I ever had. So definitely, yeah. Let's see. Do you consider previous presentations and their evaluations? We do not. It's a fresh thing every year. So if you feel like, if I'm reading this correctly, consider previous presentations, their evaluations. No, nope, it's fresh each year. Believe me, I read so many, I would not remember a specific topic or say, oh, this is so much better than last year. We're wading through a lot of proposals. So no, consider each year to be a clean slate. So it neither hurts you nor helps you as far as that goes.
Greg, I think just to go further with that, having looked at all these proposals, there's a bit of time that we can't accommodate everyone, because there may just be too many submissions for recruitment and marketing, and we've got nothing from our Money Matters. So we have to get a balance
Right.
across those educational domains. And that's when we might go back to the person and say, you know what, would you consider doing the local chapter? Would you consider maybe doing an article for Perspectives or a webinar or et cetera? But yeah, sometimes there's just so many good proposals and not enough slots.
Right. That's very common, actually. Something else that might happen, I remember one time we had, if we get 2 or 3 proposals that are very similar, and you have an option somewhere to say you'd be willing to co-present or something like that. If you check that box, I remember we had one a couple of years ago that was, somebody was talking about recruiting specifically in India. And somebody else was submitted one that was recruiting specifically in Pakistan. And we decided that they were similar enough that we asked the 2 of them, would you be willing to do a joint presentation where you could kind of go back and forth and do a compare and contrast? So sometimes that can happen. I do think if you check that box, that you'd be willing to co-present. If you actually are willing to co-present and feel like you're willing to be flexible about your topic and your time, that can increase your the possibility that you would get to present. We don't do it a ton, but I would say we probably reach out to, I don't know, 3 or 4 each year to say, hey, we've got a couple that are really similar. And sometimes, like last year, to be honest, we had so many proposals about how to deal with COVID, how to deal with COVID, how to deal with COVID, that we picked like 2 of them, and the rest were like, you know, I know it's everything we've been doing, but we can't just have a COVID conference. Like we have to switch that up a bit too. So anything else? Any other questions that come to mind as we're chatting? Give it another minute or 2. Is this summer we can go to see old topics? So Marilyn, if you, I don't know if you were at last year's summit or not, or if you're a first timer, if you've been to any of the past within the last few years, nope, new to GEM. Great question. I'm gonna defer to Christy, who is in the background here, to tell me if there's anywhere like in the exchange. I know, like if you went to the conference last year, you still have access for 1 year. If you use one of the apps from the last couple of years, you can look at the app and it's probably still there. I know I used to go back like 1 or 2 years. We've changed apps a couple times, like an old conference book. Yeah, Christy says she can send a few examples, and I think that can help. We can also, like if you're thinking about a specific domain and you wanting some mental popcorn to kind of get some ideas, again, I'm going to put my email out there. And Marilyn or anyone else, if you want to email me, I'm happy to talk to you. Just make sure you spell it correctly, because the last name is really long and really German, and one typo will mean I won't get the email. But anyway, I'm more than happy to talk to you more in depth. Maybe Christy can send those to me as well, and or if I can find out from her, and we can try to give you some examples, especially if you're first time GEM, that's harder to access that. Other questions? And as far as the old, I'm sorry, as far as the old conference book, we stopped printing conference books a couple of years back. So we've been using an app now for the in fact, well, last year we used an online platform, but in previous years we had an app. But I had all of the lists of the titles and times and whatnot. I'm sorry, Kate, I cut you short there.
No, I was just going to say, if they go to the NAGAP website, there'll be the box, have an idea, want to share my expertise. They can go out on either one of those and put in an idea for a proposal for the summit, and they can submit it, and the speakers committee takes a look at it, which is Dave Fletcher, myself, and Alicia, who couldn't be with us today, and we'll give you feedback like, yep, this is a topic, that would be great for Summit. No, this would be a topic that would be great for a webinar. It's not saying it would be accepted for Summit, but at least it would be eyes on it before the deadline that could help people. We get those requests all the time, and we get back to people and kind of direct them where they need to go. It might be something that's more appropriate for PDI, and we might direct them to the PDI committee. So, or to, the webinar, to future podcasts. So if you have any questions and you have kind of an idea and an outline already, send it, go onto the website, fill out the form and send it. And Dave, Alicia, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, that is a subgroup of the education committee that's really dedicated to, oh, good. Christy saved the day once again, but this is so normal. She does this 20 times per day. Here is the registration brochure from last year. So that's awesome. What I was going to say is Kate's subgroup on the education committee, really their sole purpose is to help with members' professional development, to formulate ideas, to kind of massage those ideas a little bit, and then get that linked with the proper forum within NAGAP to be able to share your expertise, or if it's a diamond in the rough, to help give you some guidance, especially useful for a new GEM employee, but really anybody at any experience level can benefit from that subgroup's work. Thank you, Christy, for sending that out. You're a gem, I must say. We'll maybe do one last call for questions if there's anything else. Okay, it looks like we might be good. Well, again, Christy's put the link out there. I have put my email address on there. And Kate was referring to, there are 2 boxes on the NAGAP website, right there on the homepage, I believe. One is, I've got an idea, I believe it says. And the other one says something like, I'd like to speak, or I'd like to present or something. There's a little online, excuse me?
Share your expertise.
Share your expertise. And you can fill out an online form there, and we're more than happy to get back to you to help you do the best you can and to let us know about what you know. So with that in mind, don't forget that the deadline is September 27th. If you look at the education proposal, the education session proposal information on the NAGAP Summit website, it's very in-depth. It'll probably answer all of your questions about the mechanics of how to do it. There are great examples within PRESYS, which is the application system. And one last thing I will mention, a quality application is probably not going to be done in one sitting. You can go in there, create a login, and you can go in and do your proposal, look at what it needs, go out, think about it, and keep going, and then submit it once it's been finalized. And that really is the best thing to do, is to spend some extra quality time on it. When I've turn them in, it's usually 3 or 4 times that I go in to make sure that it's solid before I hit send. Well, I think I'm going to ask my colleague Kate to join me in thanking you all for coming today. Don't forget that this is going to be available within the next, I don't know, day or 2 on the NAGAP website. In the exchange, you have to log in for past webinars. And feel free to reach out, and we look forward to seeing some awesome submissions for the education sessions for this year's summit.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and really look forward to seeing and reading your submissions, and more importantly, getting to see you in Chicago.
Can't wait. Thank you.
Bye-bye.